Hey first grade, Mrs. Daniels here. You've been learning all week long in your Journeys book about where food comes from. So I have somebody here, my husband Matt, who is a farmer, and he's gonna show us some really cool things and talk a little bit more about where our food comes from exactly. All right, so can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
So yeah, I'm Matt. My brother and I, we're farming about 1,000 acres organic. We do corn, hay, soybeans, wheat right now. So most everything is grown organic. So it's a little more work, but we don't use chemicals and stuff to kill weeds. We have to do mechanical weed control, which means cultivating with tractor and cultivator. And but yeah, everything comes mostly from seed. So behind me you can see we've got our year's supply of corn. This is seed corn, and these are soybeans here. Each bag of seed corn has about 80,000 kernels in there, which would grow 80,000 plants. We drop 32,000 seeds per acre, so that means each bag does about 2.5 acres. Soybeans, there's 140,000 about in those. Those we put down 170,000, give or take. So it takes about 2.5, 3 bags per acre, whereas one bag does 2 acres. This is a lot more, but, and then, yeah, it all starts off in the bag, whether this corn is grown to feed animals, or if it is used to make your cereal for the morning. You'd be amazed how many products that we consume every day have corn in them, and soybeans as well. Soybeans, there's a lot of food products, and also hogs, cattle use it for feed in very different ways.
What are those big bags in the back?
Those are some organic fertilizer that we're gonna try this year. So it will be spread on when the corn's about knee high. So it's a side dress, so it gives it a little more power to grow.
So fertilizer helps things grow, right?
Yep, and being that we're organic, we have to use all manures, whether it's cow manure from our cows, chicken manure we buy or plow down green, like hay or something like that. Grass makes good fertilizer as well.
Very cool.
How's it going? So I'd mentioned that we have to use a lot of manure or whatever. So behind me there, that's all chicken manure that we brought in. Comes from broiler barns where they grow the chickens that turn into chicken breasts, chicken nuggets, chicken tender, everything chicken that you buy in the stores. They're grown in big long barns. Well, when those chickens leave, they clean them out. We buy the manure for fertilizer. So then in the end, it turns into a crop that goes back to feed, that feeds the chickens, or we use it on hay that grows for dairy cows. We sell hay to dairy farms, and then they make milk. So the manure is the first step in the growing process for us. We spend a lot of time spreading manure, bringing it in, whatever. Now, that's mainly because we're organic, but manure is good fertilizer. So it can't smell it, but it doesn't smell the greatest, but that's what chicken manure looks like. Okay, so then behind me here is our grain bins. When we're harvesting our corn or soybeans or any grain that comes in, it can be wet, but this bin here is set up to dry. That's a big heating fan. There's 2 of those. It blows warm air through the grain. It dries the moisture out to a certain amount. It's 15% moisture for corn, 13 for beans. Then it's set up, it moves it over to that other bin over there, which is just storage. And then we can hold it until whenever somebody needs it, or so we don't have to move it all right out of the field at harvest. We can get it dried and keep it on hand and sell it throughout the year. So this is on farm storage. This bin holds 10,000 bushel clear to the top, and then the other one holds 30,000 bushel. clear to the top. So it's we just built that other one last year, and it's handy to have on-farm storage so you can harvest when the conditions are good to get in the field, but the grain isn't quite dry enough. We can get it taken off, get it into the bins, and then we can control how it dries from there.
Sticky water. Hey, you almost got it on me. You got the snow.
We're going.
It's going.
All right, so we grow our three main cash crops are corn, soybeans, and wheat, like I showed you the bags of seed for, but this is what the actual grain looks like, or seed. You know, these are soybeans that have been harvested, but they're just little round BBs. They look the same for when we plant them. And then this is what seed corn looks like. This is considered a round seed. There's different varieties. There's medium rounds, flats, which the seed's actually flat. But as I said, this is a round one. It almost kind of looks like a soybean. It's round, but just looks like corn. And we put it in the corn planter, which I can show you here in a minute. And then it's singulated out one kernel at a time. Then this is what wheat looks like before it's ground into flour or feed or anything. It's just that's wheat that is in all your bread and a lot of baked goods and anything like that. I can show you some of the equipment that we use to plant all this stuff and do to get the crop in the ground and out once it's matured and grown. This is our grain drill right here. Right now we're putting in alfalfa seedings, which grows for hay for cows and makes milk and everything else. But it seeds, we use it for planting wheat and like any small grains or anything like that. It levels in the front and then it puts the seed in through discs in the back, puts them into little rows. Now this is not a grain drill, doesn't meter it like the corn planter does. It just is what I consider a controlled spill, where it just has the seed comes in here. This is where we put the grass seed, and then it goes down these tubes, and it just dribbles it out on the ground. You can adjust the rate, whatever, but it doesn't. The corn planter actually singles out each seed individually and places it to however you have it set. So it's not nearly as precise. But then when you're done, it makes it more even for like hay or whatever. It's not in specific rows. It just sprinkles it out. Okay, so now this is the corn planter here. It has this for 30-inch rows. Each one of these you put seed in. Now these are called splitter units. That's what we use for our soybeans. But the back rows, you put the seed up in these boxes, and then it's the same way. It comes down and puts it into the ground right here with these discs here. But then inside here, there's a meter with fingers, and it picks, it's very precise to how it places the seed versus the drill that we looked at over there that just kind of dumps it out. It's not nearly as accurate. But then this has tanks up there for fertilizer that go in the rows. We use a fish product, but you can use several different products, and then it meters that out as well. And so then that gives the seedling, or once the seed sprouts, it can go right into fertilizer, what it needs to get growing. And sooner you can get it up out of the ground and start doing photosynthesis with the sun, the better off you are. So as soon as the ground's warm enough in the spring, we like to be planting mid-May. It's best to get the corn in May, and then beans thereafter. You can plant beans first if you prefer, but mid-May is about the ideal time to get those done. So then after the planting's done, the summer goes. Most of the corn we plant is 108-day variety, so in 108 days, as long as we get heat and everything, from the time that we plant it to it's ready to harvest. That's when we get the combines out. This is our 9650. This is a rotor machine. Does a nice job threshing. We run 8 rows, so we put an 8-row corn head on there, which means we can harvest 8 rows at a time, or a 30-foot head, so we can cut 30 feet of beans or wheat or whatever, a small grain. We can run that through either 8 or 30 at a time. It takes the crop, this is the back here, obviously. Takes the crop in from the front. There is a 6-row head up here, you can see. Takes the crop in through the front, it's called the feeder house. Runs it through the machine. In the middle is where it threshes it. It separates the kernels or the beans out of the pods. It separates what we want with what we don't. And then it blows what we don't want, the chaff, the cobs, the leaves, bean pods, stems, everything. It has sieves inside that separate it all out, blows that out. The grain goes up in that tank up there, and then when we're full, we run it out the auger into either the semi trucks or the grain carts or whatever we're using that day. That's where the grain that we want comes out. This is what a corn head looks like. This is a 6-row, meaning that it'll take 6 rows of corn at a time. You put these points go right down the rows, and that's why the corn planter is at 30-inch rows. It gives you room. You can drive down. You keep your snouts down the row. So you got to pay a little bit of attention when you're harvesting. You can't just drive wherever you want, where you got to stay on the rows or you knock it down and don't get your corn. So they're pretty sweet machines. I enjoy combining for the first few weeks at least, and then it starts getting monotonous. But after that, it's an enjoyable job because it's kind of like the end of the season. You know, you're reaping the rewards for what you've worked at growing all year, from spreading the manure in this time of year to planting to cultivating. We'll show you what a cultivator looks like here in a second, and then at the end, harvesting. Okay, so this is a cultivator here. This takes the place of our sprayers, or what most guys can do with chemicals, we have to do mechanically. So you drive this through the field, the tractor hooks up right here, it goes on the back, and then each row of whether it's corn or soybeans, it goes right down through here, and these diggers dig up in between each row, so then that helps keep the weeds and stuff that grow where there's no crop. It keeps it in check, so then that way the crop that you want to grow will get its sunlight and get the nutrients that you've put out on the field and stuff like that. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. And the biggest thing that we've learned over the years is you have to be on time with it. If you get behind, or if the weather doesn't cooperate and it gets pretty grassy or weedy out in the field, it's hard to get it fixed. So if you can stay ahead of it, and before you can really see that you got weed problems, if you can be out there working on it, it makes a better crop in the end. But this is a 6-row that we have here, and there's an 8-row over there also. But it takes a lot of time just creeping through the fields and cleaning up the weeds. Okay, so this is a platform or grain table. This is the head that we use on the combines to cut wheat or soybeans, things that that aren't in rows like the corn. This one here cuts 22 feet, so it can take 22 feet at a time, and you don't have to stay on the rows. You can just go however you need to when you're cutting. But it cuts the whole plant and everything, and then it runs it through the combine, whereas the corn head just strips the ear off of the stalk. It'll get some leaves and stuff, but for the most part you're only taking the ear off on a stalk of corn, whereas this you can't take it individual bean pods or wheat heads. You cut the whole plant off and run it through, and then the combine threshes it and separates the good from the bad. But this is the reel. It kind of rakes it in to the auger, which feeds it into the machine, and it's cut off with a knife that runs through guards at the bottom. Does like a scissor action and runs all the time. So you can run 5 mile an hour or so if your conditions are really good and grain's dry and things are flowing. 4 to 5 mile an hour through the field with that. So you can cover some good ground in a day. There we have, as I said, we have a 22, a 25, and a 30. So the bigger the more you can get accomplished, and also the combine needs to be full to do a good job. So it depends on your crop, how fast or how much material you can push through. So. Okay, so in here there's a group of steers that these were born as babies last spring, and they're now on full feed, which is ground up corn and supplement. And these guys, we'll grow them until they're approximately 1,400 pounds or so, and then we sell them at auction to meat packers, where they're taken to processed into steaks, hamburgers, whatever they need at the time is what they get grown into. But as I said, we have the mama cows, and they have babies, and we grow the babies from start to finish. This is, as I said, the group that was born last spring, and hopefully it'll probably take till midwinter till they're finished growing, where they're considered fat. And then they'll be sold. So this is the end product of what for us is what, we also sell grain, but from the seeds that come in the bags, we grow the seed and take the crop off, store it in our grain bins, and then run it through cattle or whatever's extra that we don't need, we sell for other guys to do the same thing, or it turns into food for you. So it's kind of a big cycle, whether it's, whether you're starting with the fertilizer and then you grow it all the way through, and these guys make fertilizer back. You just keep replenishing what you take from the land and try to do the best you can to come out ahead in the end.
All right, boys and girls, I hope you loved that video that Mr. Daniels made for you. I hope that it makes you think the next time you take a bite of food about where that food actually came from and how it started. Bye.